All right, construction of the canal. Now, there's a great graphic in your book dealing with some of the problems that the workers faced, right? But really, the big one was disease, right? Lots of workers are going to die because of malaria. Okay, it is jungle conditions, so you are looking at moist weather, which we all know is advantageous for mosquitoes, right? And then they carried the deadly disease, malaria. All right, 44,000 workers. It was the largest construction project of the time. All right, lots of workers, lots of money, lots of time. All right, it cost between $350 to $380 million, and it opens in 1914, which coincidentally is the first year of World War I. All right, just a couple pictures. Here's Teddy Roosevelt. Okay, he went and visited the canal, and he's operating the crane here. All right, now the canal operates on a system of locks, which would, like I said, there's a really good graphic in your book that we'll look at in section 3. Right, but the idea was, you had this giant lake in the center of Panama. All we needed to do was dig a ditch, so in quotes, they build a giant ditch through the land there, and then a ditch through the land here, and ships would be able to travel through the Caribbean Sea out into the Pacific Ocean. Now here's the system of locks that I was talking about. The ship would come into the lock. Right, the doors would close. The water level would rise or fall depending on the elevation, so that ships could travel safely throughout Panama. And then once again, here would be another picture. You can see the shortcut would be, ships could come out here through Asia, or come out here through the East Coast, through Panama, and then very quickly have access out to the Pacific and wouldn't have to go all the way around the coast of South America. All right, now looking more at how we establish our involvement in Latin America, okay? Once the construction of the canal is built, the United States is going to look at further protecting the interests that we have in there, all right? Because also the trade we were benefiting from, all the different products that we didn't have access to in the United States, we now have access to throughout Latin America. Bananas, coffee, copper being just 3 examples. All right. So American businesses began to expand throughout Latin America. They began to set up farms, set up more businesses in countries such as Cuba and Puerto Rico, right? But also Panama and other countries throughout Latin America. And then any instability or any fighting or problems that go on in the region in Latin America are going to be very worrisome for American businesses. So they're, because if there's an overthrow of the government, American businesses might be taken away in that particular country. So the U.S. was very worried about what went on in this particular region. All right, so here's where the idea of policing the hemisphere comes in. The idea that the United States should assert itself or intervene in any issues that go on in Latin America. It all starts with, actually it goes back to the 1800s with Monroe Doctrine, but Teddy Roosevelt is going to expand on the Monroe Doctrine, right, by adding his own little piece of it. Right? Now, in order to keep the U.S. the dominant power, Teddy Roosevelt felt it was necessary for the U.S. to use the military, right, if American interests were threatened, meaning if there was a revolution in a country or a country was threatening to take American businesses, Americans needed to be ready to send the military in order to protect our interests. All right, so the Monroe Doctrine was what was set up in the 1800s. Okay, that essentially just warned European nations not to set up any more colonies in Latin America. Right, this was after the United States had our revolution, and we wanted to protect newly independent countries in Latin America. All right, so here was some pictures of the Monroe Doctrine, some cartoons showing us the Monroe Doctrine. Okay, here's Uncle Sam again. I told you you're going to start seeing him a lot now throughout the rest of the school year, right? And he is essentially telling European countries to keep out. The Western Hemisphere is no longer under the influence of Europe, right? It's now under the protection or the safeguard of the United States. So building on the Monroe Doctrine, Teddy Roosevelt adds the Roosevelt Corollary, which essentially makes the United States the policeman in Latin America. Right? And that meant that we are now responsible to intervene or get involved in any issues or any problems that present themselves in Latin America. Right? And it was necessary for the United States to get involved in order to maintain that stability. And then here's a couple pictures of him using the Monroe Doctrine, or excuse me, the Roosevelt Corollary. It's also referred to as big stick diplomacy. okay, because he felt that the big stick was the big baseball bat. Sometimes I'd walk around with a big giant wiffle ball bat in class. Okay, that was represented the military, and he needed to use the military whenever possible. All right, so here he is protecting the Caribbean. Here he is protecting Latin America from Europe there. All right, and then once again, just a quick little review. Oops. All right, the Platt Amendment and the Foraker Act, we looked at them in the last section. Okay, that was once again the United States establishing more control in Latin America. Now, Roosevelt's successor, president after him, President Taft, he's going to go a little bit different direction. Where Roosevelt used big stick diplomacy or used the Roosevelt corollary, okay, President Taft is going to use dollar diplomacy, which means essentially what's right in the name, okay, using money to protect American interests. So helping other countries in Latin America grow and develop their own economies and industry would allow the United States to further protect our interests. Okay, so dollar diplomacy. And now the negative side of all of this is while some countries felt the United States was trying to help them, other countries are going to feel threatened by the United States, right, and feel that the United States was not minding their own business, was getting involved where they didn't need to get involved, which once again is still an issue on the worldwide stage today when other countries, foreign countries get involved in the affairs of other countries. Okay, there are some people that are not fans of that. Right, and just kind of summarizing, this is showing at least just the Pacific U.S. Expansion. Okay, we got the Hawaiian Islands here, you got Alaska up here. All right, Japan, trade with Japan, trade with China, we get the Philippines. All right, and we start slowly expanding. We get Wake Island here, Guam here. Guam is as a result of the Spanish-American War. But you can slowly start to see the United States setting up colonies, bases, however you want to look at it, throughout the Pacific Ocean.